I've always noticed little things about Olivia. Not because I was looking, but because she made herself noticeable. The way she laughed just a second too long when I cracked a joke. How she'd lean forward during conversations, keeping her eyes on me a bit too long. It never crossed a line, not at first. She was Sarah's best friend, and I respected that. I had no reason to believe anything was off. But then it changed. It started with how she'd touch my arm when talking, fingers trailing just enough to feel deliberate. Her body language was always open, playful. She'd stretch in front of me, adjust her top, let her hair down slowly like it was all perfectly timed. I told myself it was just her being comfortable. Maybe she was like this with everyone. But I started watching more closely. And what I saw wasn't comfort. It was intention. Sarah invited her over constantly. Wine nights, casual dinners, lazy Sundays. And each time, Olivia's energy dialed up a little more. I caught her watching me when she thought I wasn't looking. Her compliments got more specific. "You're always so calm," she said once. "It's attractive, actually. You just carry yourself well." It came out soft, almost like a secret she wasn't sure she should say. I laughed it off, but my stomach tightened. At a birthday dinner, she wore this dark green dress. Tight, short, with a neckline that didn't try to be subtle. Sarah joked, "Damn, Liv, who are you trying to impress?" Olivia smiled and said, "Myself. And maybe just someone who notices." She looked at me when she said it. Not long, not dramatic, but long enough. Later that night, I was in the hallway getting water. Olivia came out of the bathroom and we bumped into each other. Just the two of us. She didn't move right away. Her perfume was soft, warm, like vanilla and something darker. She looked up at me and smiled. "You're always so polite," she said, her voice low. "Always doing the right thing." I felt heat rise in my neck. "Well," I said, trying to laugh, "someone has to." She tilted her head slightly, eyes fixed on mine. "I wonder if you ever break your own rules." Before I could answer, Sarah called her name from the living room. Olivia touched my chest lightly as she passed. "You should," she whispered. "Sometimes rules need to be broken." That night I couldn't sleep. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe I misread her. But part of me didn't want to be wrong. And that part, the part one kept buried deep, started to crawl to the surface. Over the next few days, she lingered in my head like a song I couldn't stop hearing. Every word, every look, replayed in loops. I started anticipating her visits. My heart would jolt when her name popped up on Sarah's phone. One evening, I overheard them talking about planning another hangout, and I felt a surge of something I didn't want to name. Not guilt. Not yet. Something closer to excitement. The next time she came over, Olivia brought dessert. She joked it was for my approval. When I took a bite, she watched me too closely. "Well," she asked, licking frosting off her thumb slowly. "Worth it?" I nodded, but my eyes lingered on her mouth longer than they should have. She noticed. During a card game later that night, she sat beside me, thighs barely brushing. She laughed at everything I said, reached for the same cards I did, her fingers grazing mine and holding a beat too long. Sarah was across from us, sipping wine, oblivious or pretending to be. When Sarah got up to take a call, Olivia leaned in close. "You're different when she's not in the room," she said quietly. I tried to act confused. "What do you mean?" She smiled, brushing imaginary lint off my shoulder. "You relax. I like it." Then she turned back to the game like nothing happened. After they left that night, I stood in the doorway watching her walk to her car. She looked back. Not at Sarah. Me. No wave, no words. Just a knowing glance that hit like lightning. It was subtle, but it was loaded. In the days that followed, I kept playing that look in my head. I started noticing how often I was thinking about her, not just as Sarah's friend, but as a woman. Olivia wasn't just flirting, she was testing something. And I was letting her. I didn't tell Sarah. What would I even say? "Your best friend might be into me and I kind of like it." Well, instead I stayed quiet, but everything inside me started shifting. Every visit from Olivia felt like a secret conversation wrapped in normal behavior. She wasn't saying anything explicit. She didn't have to. Her body spoke it all. And worse, I had started responding. I found myself dressing better when I knew she'd be around. I shaved more often. I paid attention to my posture, my voice. I started laughing at her jokes more easily, leaning in when she spoke, matching her energy. I convinced myself it was harmless, that nothing had happened. But deep down I knew it already had. It wasn't physical, not yet. But emotionally, the crack had already opened. And with each passing moment, Olivia was widening it. Not with force, with precision. And I wasn't pushing back. I was standing in place, letting it happen. Almost daring it to go further, IT started with a message at 11:43 p.m. Olivia, you ever feel like you're more yourself with someone who isn't yours? I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. Sometimes, she responded instantly. I thought so. That was the beginning of our real conversations. The ones that didn't involve Sarah, didn't pretend to be friendly banter. They were deeper, riskier. Each night we talked longer. First about random things. Then it turned personal. She told me she hadn't been in a serious relationship in years. Said she'd stopped trying because no one really saw her. I told her I understood. That even in love sometimes you can feel invisible. She asked me what Sarah and I were like now. I hesitated. Then I told her the truth, or at least part of it. That we'd grown distant, that things felt predictable. She didn't judge. She just said, that must be hard for someone like you. You need more. It was a compliment, but it felt like an invitation. I knew where the line was. And I knew we were already dancing on it. A few days later she suggested coffee. Just us, she added, like it was nothing. I agreed without even thinking. We met on a quiet afternoon. No makeup, casual clothes, but she still looked effortless. We talked for 2 hours. Nothing romantic. Nothing obvious. But it felt like a date. I remembered everything she said, how she smiled when I made her laugh, the way her fingers curled around her cup. When we said goodbye, she hugged me. Longer than usual. Not inappropriate, but charged. That night she messaged again. You have a way of making me forget everything else. I didn't respond. Not right away. I just read it over and over, knowing what it meant. Knowing what I wanted it to mean. She started finding reasons to be around more often. Dropping something off. Asking for help. Inviting Sarah and me to events. Only to end up alone with me while Sarah was distracted. She'd lean on the kitchen counter, watching me with that look like she knew exactly what she was doing. One night she asked me, if we met under different circumstances, do you think we would have worked? I didn't lie. Yeah. I think we might have. She nodded. Quietly. I think about that more than I should. Everything with Sarah started feeling like background noise. She didn't do anything wrong. But Olivia made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. It wasn't just attraction, it was connection. I started waking up wondering what Olivia was doing. I'd open my phone hoping to see her name. The guilt came in flashes. Mostly at night. But it didn't last. It was always buried under anticipation. Curiosity. Hunger. At a small gathering, Olivia and I ended up seated together. Not by accident. She whispered things to me during conversations. Brushed against me. Her fingers stayed on my knee for a second too long under the table. I didn't stop her. I didn't want to. When she left that night, she said, I'm trying really hard not to cross a line. I looked at her and all I could say was, me too. She stopped pretending after that. Her messages became more direct. She'd ask what I was wearing, what I was thinking about. I tried to resist, to keep it light. But I'd already given her too much of me. One night she said, tell me something you've never told anyone. I said, I think I'd choose you if things were different. Her reply, things don't always have to stay the same. I started to imagine her more vividly. Work. In the shower. During dinner with Sarah, I caught myself picturing Olivia across from me instead. Felt horrible. but also alive. It was like waking up from a long, slow dream. I didn't know what I wanted more, to make it stop or to let it consume me. There was a night Sarah went to bed early. I sat in the living room scrolling my phone, heart racing, waiting for Olivia to message. When she didn't, I messaged her. "Thinking about you." She replied within seconds. "I can't sleep either. I miss your voice." That was the first time I heard her say something so raw. Called her. We didn't talk about anything specific. We just listened to each other breathe. She said, "If I come over right now, would you stop me?" I didn't answer. She didn't come. But the damage was done. The next day she acted normal. Joked with Sarah. Smiled like nothing was happening. But when she passed behind me, her fingers brushed against my back. It was the smallest touch, but it felt electric. That's when I knew. This wasn't something we could contain. We'd already let it grow too far. Every conversation, every text, every lingering glance. It had all built up into something we couldn't name but couldn't ignore. One night, Sarah said Olivia was pulling away. "She's been distant lately," she told me. "I think something's going on." Played dumb. Said maybe she was just busy. But I knew the truth. Olivia was fighting herself. Just like I was. But we were both losing. I found myself rereading her messages late at night. Watching old videos where she was in the background, laughing. Zooming in on her smile. I was obsessed, and I didn't care who knew. The worst part wasn't the guilt. It was the longing. I wanted to be near her. I wanted to touch her. I wanted to see how far she would go. And if I'd let her. I started seeing everything in dual frames. One with Sarah, the life I'd built, safe and structured. The other with Olivia, dangerous, thrilling, uncertain. I knew I couldn't have both. But I didn't want to choose. Not yet. Because the truth was, every time Olivia looked at me like she did, I forgot what I was supposed to protect. And all I wanted was to fall deeper into the fire we were pretending not to touch. Sarah left for the weekend to visit her parents. Olivia knew. I didn't tell her. I didn't have to. She messaged me that morning. "Hope you get some quiet time. You need it." I stared at her words like they meant more than they said. I didn't reply right away, but I didn't need to. We both knew the silence was louder than any answer. She came by in the evening. Said she forgot a book she had lent Sarah weeks ago. I let her in. No questions. No explanations. She walked in like she belonged. We didn't talk much. She asked how I was doing. I said I was fine. She nodded, then asked, "Are you sure?" I didn't answer. I just looked at her. And she looked back like she'd been waiting for me to say nothing. The moment didn't feel rushed. Felt overdue. She stood close. Close enough that I felt her breath when she exhaled. She said, "I've tried to stay away. But I'm tired of pretending." My pulse was loud in my ears. I should have stopped her. I should have walked away. But instead I said, "So am I." We didn't speak after that. We didn't need to. Our bodies answered what our mouths couldn't. When she touched me, I didn't flinch. I leaned in. I let her fingers trail across my skin like she'd memorized the path before. I let her lips press against mine with the weight of weeks held back. Her body felt like a question I'd already answered. It wasn't rough. It wasn't wild. It was quiet and slow and filled with everything we'd refused to say. Her hands trembled when she undressed me. Mine shook when I touched her. But we didn't stop. Not even for a second. There was no guilt, no hesitation. Just release. She kissed my neck and whispered, "You have no idea how long I've wanted this." I said, "I do." 'Cause I had. Every minute we'd danced around each other had been building toward this one. Afterwards we lay in silence. Her head on my chest, her hand over my heart. I didn't know what to say. She broke the quiet. "This changes everything, doesn't it?" He nodded. "It already has." She got up before I could stop her. Dressed quietly. I watched her, memorizing every movement. Before she left, she looked at me and said, "I know we can't undo this. But I don't regret it." I wanted to say I didn't either. But I just watched her leave. When the door closed, the silence that followed was different. It wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. That night, I lay awake replaying every second. Not out of shame, but because it felt real. More real than anything I'd felt in a long time. And I didn't know what that said about me or about Sarah, or about what I was becoming. The next day, Olivia didn't message. Neither did I. But we didn't need to. We were past pretending now. Everything we'd ignored had already happened. There was no going back. Only waiting for what came next. When Sarah called that afternoon, her voice felt far away. She asked if everything was okay. Said yes. I said I missed her. It wasn't a lie. I did. But not in the way I used to. Something in me had shifted and I couldn't explain it. Not even to myself. Olivia messaged me the next night. Just one sentence. I can still feel you. My hands shook when I read it. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't feel the same. But because I felt too much. I kept seeing her face. The way she looked at me when she was beneath me. The way her voice cracked when she said my name. It wasn't just lust. It wasn't just cheating. It was something deeper. Something more dangerous. I wanted to see her again. I thought about asking her to come back. But I didn't. Not yet. I needed space to understand what I had just done. Not to erase it, but to absorb it. To admit to myself that I had crossed the line. Fully and without restraint. And the worst part. I didn't want to go back. I missed her more than I wanted to miss anyone. I missed her touch, her voice, her silence. I missed the way she made me feel like I was wanted, chosen, seen. Not out of habit or obligation, but out of raw, unfiltered desire. Sarah never made me feel like that. Not anymore. I thought maybe the guilt would hit later. That maybe after a few days I'd hate myself. But that didn't come. What came was hunger. For more. For her. I didn't know what Olivia wanted now. If she'd pulled away out of shame. Or if she was giving me space to decide. But the decision had already been made. The moment we touched, it was sealed. There was no part of me that felt unsure. I knew exactly what I'd done. And I knew exactly what I would do again given the chance. Because the truth is, some parts of us wake up only when we betray the life we've built. And once they're awake, they don't go back to sleep. Olivia didn't come back. Not that week. Not the one after. But she stayed in my phone, in my head, in every quiet moment I had alone. We didn't talk like before. No late-night confessions. No teasing text. Just silence that wasn't empty. It was waiting. Sarah noticed. She asked if something had happened. Said no. I lied with a straight face, and the worst part was how easily it came out. She looked at me differently that night. Not because she knew, but because something in me had changed and she could feel it. I tried to be present again. I helped with dinner, watched shows with her, made the kind of small talk we used to live in. But it felt flat. Like I was playing a role I'd already outgrown. My body was there, but the part of me that mattered had already left. Olivia's silence wasn't rejection. It was control. She had made her move, and now she was waiting for mine. She had nothing to lose. I was the one who had everything at stake. She knew that, and I think she wanted to see what I would do next without being pushed. So I went to her. I didn't warn her. I just showed up. When she opened the door, there was no surprise on her face. Just a soft, tired smile. Like she'd been expecting me, but wasn't sure if I'd actually come. She stepped aside without a word. I told her everything. That I couldn't stop thinking about her. That I didn't regret what we did. That pretending nothing happened was worse than the guilt. She didn't respond right away. Then she said, "So what now? Do I get to be your secret?" Her voice wasn't angry. It was hollow. I didn't answer because I didn't have one. She looked at me and said, "I want more than a stolen moment. If you can't give me that, don't come back." I left without a promise. Not because I didn't want her, but because I didn't know how to burn down the life I had built just to chase something uncertain. I thought the night with her would give me clarity. But all it gave me was need. Raw, constant, maddening. Sarah kissed me that night like everything was normal. Let her. I went through the motions. But I felt like a ghost in my own house. I started avoiding eye contact, making excuses. I felt trapped between the comfort of what was and the risk of what could be. A week passed. Then two. Olivia didn't reach out again. I thought maybe she was done waiting. Maybe she had moved on. But then I saw her at a small gathering Sarah dragged me to. She looked calm, composed. She didn't speak to me directly, but she didn't avoid me either. Just smiled politely, like a stranger with a shared past. That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and thought about every moment I had wasted not being with her. About how we'd both stood on the edge, and how I'd pulled back. Not because I didn't love the view, but because I was afraid of the fall. So I made a decision. I ended it with Sarah. I told her the truth in pieces. That I hadn't been present. That my heart was somewhere else. I didn't say Olivia's name. I didn't have to. Sarah cried. She asked if it was worth it. I didn't answer. Because I didn't know yet. I only knew I couldn't keep living a lie. I didn't go to Olivia that night. I waited a few days. Gave it space. Then I called her. When she picked up, she didn't say anything. She just listened. I told her it was over with Sarah. That I had made my choice. That I didn't know what would happen next. But I wanted her in it. She didn't say she was proud of me. She didn't say she missed me. She just said, "Then let's stop pretending this isn't real." That was the beginning of something messy, something complicated, something real. We didn't fall into each other easily after that. There were fights. Awkward moments where we remembered what we did and who we hurt. But there was also laughter. A strange sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. I learned things about her I never saw before. The way she overthinks everything. The way she pulls her sleeves over her hands when she's nervous. The way she listens, truly listens when you talk. She wasn't perfect. Neither was I. But we were honest. And that was new. People talk. Some friendships faded. Sarah didn't reach out again. I didn't expect her to. I had burned the bridge. But sometimes, destruction is the only way to build something that's actually alive. What Olivia gave me wasn't just passion. It was attention, reflection. A mirror held up to the version of myself I had forgotten existed. With her I wasn't just wanted, I was chosen. Fully. Intentionally. Repeatedly. We don't talk about how it started. We don't need to. It's part of us, but it doesn't define us. What matters is that we stopped lying, to each other, to ourselves. I won't pretend it was noble. It wasn't. It was selfish, reckless, cruel in some ways. But it was also necessary. Because sometimes, you outgrow a love without realizing it. And sometimes, the person who sees that first isn't your partner. It's someone standing just close enough to notice everything you've lost. Olivia was never the villain. She just held up the mirror. I was the one who chose to look. And once I did, I couldn't go back.